the last time I saw any statistic at all, it said something like in a survey of America, non-Jewish America, that the most non-Jews in America, meaning more than 50% of them who were asked, thought that the Jews were like 1/3 of the country. And part of it was, I always thought, was the result of a fabulous PR coup of the 1950s. You guys okay? Okay. All right. Yeah, well, I think if you call down, they'll deliver food there too. Yeah. In any event, I think part of it, I've always thought, was the result of this great public relations coup of the 50s and 60s, when Jewish organizations worked very hard to sort of convince the non-Jewish world that, the world was Protestants, Catholics, and Jews, and we were like them, just Jewish. You know what I mean? They had their beliefs, we had our beliefs, they had their religion, we had our religion. It's a country of religions, and we were one of them. And that was the formal Jewish community's idea of how to be accepted into the general population, was to look and act as much as we could like everybody else. And so, if we were always hammering on Protestants, Catholics, and Jews, it gives the impression that we're 1/3 of the country. We got Protestants, Catholics, and Jews. And then Muslims started showing up, and that threw a wrench in everything. But, Protestants, Catholics, and Jews. So I will point out that this wasn't an invention of the American Jewish community alone. If you ever did a study of synagogue architecture, at KI, we have a whole wall, 2 walls actually, filled with sketches of synagogues from all over the world that was donated by one of our former members, whose father, who was born in Kenya, in the Jewish community in Kenya, and her father was an architect in Kenya and designed the synagogue in Kenya. And then he had all of these wonderful sketches of synagogues all over the world. So we have those. And if you look at them, you will see that what Jews so cleverly have done throughout our history is, wherever we landed, we wanted to look like everybody else. So we built our synagogues looking like whatever the primary religious institution might have been in that town or in that community or in that country. So they looked like mosques in some countries and looked like cathedrals. I mean, you go to Wilshire Boulevard downtown or go to Temple Emmanuel in New York, and it's a cathedral, built like a cathedral, because that's like what classy religious institutions look like in that era. I can't speak about the architecture here because I wasn't here anymore. But in general, that's what, for survival, it makes sense, because we are resilient and we figure out how to survive everywhere we go, whether we go there by choice or we're dragged there literally, as we have been often. You accommodate. And in fact, Judaism itself, look, KI is a Reconstructionist congregation. Reconstructionism is a philosophy and idea started by Rabbi Mordecai Kaplan, best articulated in his most famous book called Judaism as a Civilization, published in whenever it was, 1934, I think. What Kaplan's insight, which after he said it became sort of it was like, oh, obviously, was that Judaism is the evolving religious civilization of the Jewish people. And in that era, in the 20s and 30s, whatever, still people were arguing about what's Judaism? Is it a religion? Is it a race? Is it a culture? Is it a blah, blah? Is it a whatever? And Kaplan, I think, appropriately said, no, it's a religious civilization. It's a civilization like every other civilization. It's got language, literature, art, history, culture, food, music, all the things civilizations have. We happen to be, transnational or around the world, and we're always evolving. We're evolving, and we're religious because we deal with issues of ultimate meaning. So and we have rituals and all the religious kinds of rituals that every religion has. We have our version, other people have their versions of the same kind of acknowledging gratitude and acknowledging thankfulness and acknowledging special significant life cycle moments. And, that's what religions do. We mark time in sacred ways. We articulate what we think are sacred values. And then we have rituals that reinforce those. So we, like most religions and religious civilizations, have, morning rituals, afternoon rituals, evening rituals, blessings for everything. In fact, the blessing for what we're doing right now is Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Kidshanu B'Mitzvotav V'Tzivanu La'asok B'Divrei Torah. She's blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who makes us holy with your mitzvot and commands us, gives us the opportunity to occupy ourselves with words of Torah. That's the official Torah study blessing. So I pretend because I'm a rabbi, anything I say is Torah study. So there we go. And I do have something relative to Torah here, which we may get to in a moment. In any event, it seems to me that resilience is kind of fundamental theme of Jewish life and Jewish civilization. And we revel in it. I mean, we, the Jewish people, talk about it all the time. We're still here. We have all those jokes that are out there, that they tried to kill us, we won, let's eat. That's every holiday and all that kind of stuff. Because, in fact, that it's funny because it's true. Yeah. That's why it's funny, as it is, encapsulates much of what we know and feel about what it is to be a Jew in the world, what has been in the past, hopefully not in the future, but, in the world in which we're living in at the moment, the kind of violence that seems to be rising all around us, not specifically about us, although also about us. What happened yesterday, and there was another school shooting yesterday too, somewhere I saw. It's like, too many guns in the wrong hands, basically, in our society. And, part of our job as members of a spiritual civilization is to do what we can to elevate the values that we hold dear and bring them into the larger community, which is why historically Jews have always been, as I started saying, very highly participatory in civic life. We have a history of being highly participatory in civic life, and therefore heard a lot. I mean, because we talk a lot, and other than myself, we talk loudly. So it both gives the impression there's more of us than there is, and also has the disadvantage of making people targets, because you're out there and you're speaking, as opposed to hiding. So, and trying to create a balance between hiding and not hiding, between feeling safe and engaging in the work of what we loosely call tikkun olam, of healing the world, of bringing the right values out into the world. It's a dance, it's an art, and we live in a world with pendulums swinging back and forth between lots of polarities, and more, unfortunately, than ever. So resilience. So I thought I would give you a definition of resilience. I don't remember where I got it now. I didn't quote where I got it. That resilience can be defined by 6 ideals. I just liked it. That's why. Endurance, hope, living with uncertainty, remembering the past, the ability to rebuild, both spiritually, emotionally, and physically, particularly if you're from the Palisades, and strength of belief. That these were some of the hallmarks of resilience, of every kind of resilience, physical, spiritual, communal. And if you went on Google or someplace and you looked up Jewish quotes on resilience, something like that, I guarantee maybe the only one, but for sure the first one would be what I put here as number 1 from Proverbs, because there's a phrase in the book of Proverbs, which is all these short little pithy nice sayings, is a righteous person falls down 7 times and yet rises up. Doesn't matter what the context is, but it's been used ever since, for the last couple thousand years, really, by teachers, rabbis, scholars, sages, in talking in the Jewish world and talking about resilience to say, this is what the Torah teaches, that no matter how many times you knock us down, we rise again. Yeah.
Oh, kind of struck by the number 7. Or fall down 8 times.
Yes, that's a wonderful question. It's a wonderful question because you start out talking about the wedding that I'm going to officiate, and there are 7 blessings in the wedding, see. And why are there 7 blessings in a wedding? Because 7 itself is a powerful kind of mystical number in Judaism, as it is in other religious traditions. Should I put a kippah on, look like a rabbi? I have it in my pocket. I should put it on. I was over at the Kehillat Israel the other day for the first time. It was very disturbing, but I was there because I had to rescue my shofar because Rosh Hashanah is coming and I'm blowing the shofar at the service that I'm leading. So I had to find my shofar, which I did. But then I also was looking to find a talit, a talis or two of mine, which I couldn't find because everything's in boxes, hundreds of boxes everywhere. Anyway, but I do have a kippah, so it makes me look more Jewish, don't you think? In any event, 7 is a mystical number. It signifies creation. 7 days of creation, even though there's 6 and then 1. We have 7 days of the week. It's also traditionally a symbol of completion because that's what a week is, 7 days. So 7's pops up in various places. There are, in Jewish numerology, certain numbers that are consistent. 7 is one of them. 40 is very popular. Lots of 40s everywhere. 40 days and 40 nights and 40 years and all this 40s. And 40 is the number traditionally in Jewish thought that 40 years symbolizes a generation. How they came up with that, I don't know, but they did. So every 40 years is as if it's a new generation. If they were in the 21st century, every 5 years would be a new generation now. But yes, dear.
That's double what I think of as.
You think of 20?
Yeah.
No, I have no idea.
Okay.
I can make something up and pretend I know them. I'm very good at making things up and pretending I know things. Yeah, things like that. You were mature when you were 40 or dead, one of the two, 100 years ago. At any event, so the righteous person falls down 7 times. The idea is just that persistence. When you study success, all those self-help success books that are out there in the world, you could probably boil most of them down to one thing and one word. It would be persistence. All these, who got successful at this, who got successful at that, and they will inevitably say, it was because I didn't quit, because I didn't stop, because when you stop, you're done. If you keep going, you keep going, you keep pushing, you keep going. It's this idea of no matter how many times you fall down, it's getting up that matters, not falling down. Everybody falls down. Some people don't get up. One of our congregants over in the Palisades is Jake Steinfeld. You may not know Jake, but he became famous with Bodies by Jake. He was one of the guys who started sort of the personal body training revolution in LA in several books, started Fit TV, is a very successful, wonderful guy. And Jake's motto is, don't quit. So no matter what he writes you about anything, it ends with, don't quit, don't quit, don't quit. So, because that's pretty much the key to most successes in life. Most things don't come automatically to most of us. Some of us find things easy, but most of us don't just automatically succeed at everything we do. We pick up and we start again, or we write again, or, and you read all those stories of all the famous people and Edison, how many times he had to, fail, quote, to invent the light bulb. And of course, famously, Edison said, I never failed at all. Everyone got me closer to success. We had 1,000, I think, experiments before I got there, and on and on and on and on. And all the people that got rejected by their publisher, 50 times, and then finally someone said, okay, and then it was a bestseller and forever, that kind of thing. Those are all over the place, all those stories. And it's good to read those stories and remember those stories, because all of us struggle with all kinds of things in life. Some of us getting up physically, literally getting up, the older I get, the more it's a challenge getting up. So, and it's still the key to success is taking the next step and taking the next step. And even though it doesn't guarantee success always, it also becomes a kind of a positive self-fulfilling prophecy, because it reminds you of your own resilience, that you are willing to try again, whatever it is. You're willing to take another step. And I think self-talk is very important. Actually, I was listening to a podcast the other day. I can't even remember to tell you who the podcast was. I might remember in case anybody cares. But in the podcast, one of the things that I'd never heard before, they were talking about chatter, the chatter that people have in their own mind. That is, some of us are talking to ourselves all the time. Some of us. I assumed all of us are talking to ourselves all the time, and what I learned in this podcast is it's not true. There are people who don't talk to themselves all the time at all. They just, I don't know what they do, because there's always a chatter going on in my brain. It's why I never slept when I was a kid. I couldn't shut my brain off from thinking and chattering with itself all the time. So that's why they invented drugs, I think, so chatterers can stop chattering. But, and it's partly also why many of us have had the experience of while we are engaged with somebody or a group, some of us are teachers, while we're teaching and we're saying one thing, there's a part of our brain that is the observing part of our brain that's observing us doing what we're doing. It's not what we're doing, it's watching what we're doing, which is, when you think about it, a little scary, but fascinating that you can be literally having two thoughts going on at the same time. It's as if you're in two places at the same time. It's part of the kind of the spiritual world to me, that there's a part of me who can observe how I'm doing when I'm doing something, not just the doing of it, but as if I'm literally standing next to me watching, going, yeah, do it differently or do that or whatever. And there are people who that doesn't happen to ever at all, which I found fascinating, that there's no chatter going on in their brain. It has nothing to do with resilience. But so I have some quotes from some of my favorite people. Lord Rabbi Jonathan Sacks, one of my favorite Jews in the world. When he died not too long ago, maybe a couple of years ago. He was the chief rabbi of England, of the United Kingdom. Rabbi Sacks, written many, many, many books, all of them brilliant, was a brilliant man and a wonderful, caring, loving kind of human being. And he once said, this is how to deal with crisis. Wrestle with it, refusing to let it go until it blesses you, until you emerge stronger, better, or wiser than you were before. To be a Jew, I'll put an S there, is not to accept defeat. That's the meaning of faith, which I found fascinating. It's like, I don't know, you tell me, when you think of, someone says faith, what do you think of? Faith, F-A-I-T-H. People say faith or talk about faith. What comes into your mind? Anybody?
Have faith in God.
Faith in God. Having faith that whatever you're doing will work out. You have kind of a different kind of faith, different kind of use of the term, right? Because we talk about being a faith community, we're talking about something spiritual and something maybe about prayer, maybe about God. And this is interesting that it's Rabbi Sacks. He says, this is the meaning of faith, which is not accepting defeat, emerging stronger from whatever the fires literally are, emerging stronger from it. And of course, that becomes the theme everywhere. Build back better or build back stronger. I think there's something on the Palisades about Pally strong, yeah, stronger. I have a hat that says that somewhere. Somebody gave me. But faith, fundamentally, to me, the idea of faith starts with yourself. It's trusting yourself, having faith in yourself. Because, and I probably said this last month because I say it all the time, I believe everybody's insecure. I think what binds us all together in this scary world of ours is that everybody's insecure. And I know I said this, but I'll say it again. We come by it honestly because we're human beings and we are totally 100% vulnerable for years of our life, the most formative years of our life, from birth till whenever, depending upon if you're on your own or you're raised in a family or whatever. As long as it is, no matter what, it's years, unlike other animals out there in the world. I just saw something on TV right before I came here, watching this strange Australian show. But it was on a farm, on a ranch, and a cow gave birth. And there was part of this trauma of getting the baby cow out of the mother and whatever. Baby cow comes out, and they lift the baby cow up, and there it is, a cow. Yeah, it needs to suckle for a little bit, but like so many animals, it's not like you're going to be around for years and, go to kindergarten and then first grade and then second grade, and eventually you'll go to religious school or whatever. Humans are for the longest period of time totally vulnerable and dependent on someone to take care of them for their very existence, for their food, their shelter, their warmth, or everything. So how can we not have that imprinted powerfully in the very core of who we are in the world? It doesn't go away when we grow up and become adults, and now I'm responsible. Scary to be an adult. I remember when I was a young boy, out to dinner in a restaurant with my family once. And when I was growing up, we didn't go to restaurants very often, but I was in a restaurant and I remember, it's weird that I remember this. I was a little boy and I remember turning to my father and saying, how am I going to know how to do this when I grow up? Like be the man who's responsible with somebody, taking them out to dinner or paying for any of those things that one does. And I just remember being a little boy going, how am I going to know how to do adult?
It's a pretty smart question.
Yeah.
I can't even remember the answer. But I'm sure the answer was, we'll know when it's time. What do you say? Trust me, you'll know. But, that fear, that anxiety, that concern, that need to have some faith in yourself as you go through life is the fundamental issue of faith, of trusting yourself. And when do we need faith? Well, all of us who just went through the wildfires across the hill, or here when, I moved from my wildfire into the Marriott, told you this, over in Woodland Hills Marriott, because my daughter lived 2 minutes from there, still does. And I had friends from the Palisades who went to stay with friends of theirs in Encino. And then suddenly there they were and at the Marriott. I said, what are you guys doing here? We just got evacuated from Encino, because, the fires that time when they were afraid it was coming over the hill. And of course, now I live in Calabasas. I'm surrounded by trees. I suddenly realized I'm in one of the highest fire zones all over again. So what was I thinking? Anyway, so in any event, resilience needs an engine. And the engine starts with faith, so you don't just hide. I know people who hardly ever leave their home or hardly ever leave their room. I know people like that. unfortunately, for lots of reasons that they shut down, traumas that they've experienced of all kinds. I know people who don't go to sleep at night because of their fears of the result of traumas until they fall asleep at maybe 4 a.m. or something like that every night, no matter where they are. Needing that sense of faith in whatever happens, I'll be able to deal with it. I'll be able to cope with it. So I brought a few Jewish thoughts on it. The brachot one from the Talmud, I thought was an interesting image. Even if an unsheathed sword lies upon a person's neck, they must not hold back from faith in God's mercy. One of the important mitzvot one of the most important mitzvot in rabbinic literature in the Talmud is Pidyon Shvuim, the redeeming captives. Someone should tell that to Netanyahu. But in any event, that's one of the highest forms of mitzvah, is the redemption of captives. Why? Because unfortunately, throughout Jewish history, they were constantly captives. And very often it was the rabbi of the community who got kidnapped essentially by whoever the local hotshot was, and then held for ransom to the community. The Jewish community had to literally pay a fee to ransom the rabbi back into the community. There's a joke there, but I won't go there. In any event, unfortunately, that was an ongoing part of Jewish history, being that we were so vulnerable throughout the diaspora in whatever community we lived in. And therefore, it became an important mitzvah to pool resources to free captives and to free slaves from slavery as well. I like Menachem Mendel of Katz. He's a famous Hasidic Rabbi. And so I picked one of his, which said 3 ways are open to a person in sorrow. I kind of like the analogy of that to need of resilience. The lowest rung is weeping, the higher rung is silence, and the highest rung converts sorrow into song. What do you think about his notion that the lowest level is weeping and a higher level is silence? What do you think he meant by that?
It's a huge progression to resources.
Like, what's in the silence?
Thinking.
Yeah, that. Silence is something I obviously wrestle with all the time since how long have I been nonstop talking? 42 minutes so far. Because silence is not my strong suit in life. Never has been. I'm a drummer, can I tell you? I was playing last Friday, once a month, in case you're interested. Once a month at Temple Isaiah, they have a wonderful jazz service. I'm the drummer in the band. Just last Friday. And I had to work at meditation. I had to, which I have done, and I do, meditate. But certainly didn't come naturally to me, meditation. Too much chatter in my brain for meditation, which of course is one of the reasons that you meditate, is to try to quiet the chatter that's going on. Pick a mantra or pick something that'll focus you more, which I do, although I have to admit that I have done it when I needed it the most. I have done it the least, now that I am about to say that, since January. The trauma of the whole fire thing has really had an impact on my ability to focus. I've noticed.
Yes.
It's like, and I'm easily distracted anyway, so it's like that wasn't a good thing. But I have been meditating much less, taking the time. I had a whole routine, a 2-hour morning routine, part of which was at least 20 minutes of meditating before the fire in the Palisades. And there's nothing stopping me from doing it, except my brain is not focusing. It's going to be one of my Rosh Hashanah New Year's resolutions, is like, slow down. And I also feel like I've been running since January 7th. Did I tell you last time that someone came in to see our condo on this day before the fire and said they were going to buy it? I sold my condo the day before, but then I didn't really, because he was just there saying, yeah, I'm going to buy it. Then the next day it burned to the ground. So anyway, it was one of those, it's like if you put it in a movie, they'd go, that's too contrived. That would never happen. But that's part of the challenge of resilience is being able to have this silence, that is sitting back. Watch my body language. I'm like this all the time, right? Sitting back, which automatically slows you down. It's as if I'm running all the time. And I'm not even a runner, except for in high school. I went to 1 year at Samo High. Till I was 16, I lived in Santa Monica. So I was at Samo High just for 10th grade. And because I'm a drummer, Samo High at the time had this fantastic big, like 20-piece jazz band, stage band. So they asked me to be the drummer in the band when I was in 10th grade, which was like a big honor because that was the first year of the high school in those days. But in order to do that, it took one of the periods. There were 6 periods, which meant I had to go out for a sport after school in order to be able to play in the band. I am not a sports person, never been my strong suit. And so they told me, you're going to be a long distance runner. So I had to join the long distance track team. It was a nightmare, running all over Santa Monica. Oh my God, I thought I was going to die. Every time I thought I was going to die. Every time. These guys are running and I'm...
But you did?
Yeah, I wanted to play drums. Need motivation. Motivation. I had to play drums in the band. And then when I was 16, we moved to Sacramento. The night before we moved to Sacramento, I was playing drums with the Samo High Serenaders in the Hollywood Bowl. So it was worth it.
Battle of the Bands.
Battle of the Bands. Got to play in the Hollywood Bowl. It was very fun. And I was out to Sacramento. Anyway, that's, yeah, you put up with things because.
But I don't know if any of you all saw that, but Paul McCartney was performing in London. He had like 20,000 people at his concert. It was a couple of days ago. Some people were there that were caught, all of a sudden started causing, never really said what the problem was with chaos.
Yeah.
So it made me think of it when he sang the song. He just got up to the microphone and started singing Let It Be. And he started singing, and everybody in the crowd started singing. And it actually, like the people who were causing the chaos didn't have like an audience. Everyone was singing with him, but it stopped it.
Good move.
Isn't that interesting? He just started singing.
Yeah.
It was a trouble. I mean,
Beautiful.
just like.
I didn't see that. I love hearing it though.
Came up on my Facebook. I didn't know. I made me think of it when you said the song.
Yeah.
Sorrowing the song, he just started singing it.
I like this Jewish proverb that's number 7. Ask not for a lighter burden, but for broader shoulders. Being able to carry whatever you have to carry in life.
And I just saw this written somewhere, and it's probably where I saw it.
Pessimism is a luxury that a Jew can never allow himself. Yeah, I saw Golda Meir somewhere.
And it was quoted. She was quoted.
I had dinner with Golda Meir once.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, actually, it was actually a Jewish Israel Bonds dinner in New York when I was first a rabbi in New York. For the first 5 years I was a rabbi. I was living in New York before I came here to lovely Temple, Judea. And was active in something. So they asked me if I would be the rabbi who gave the benediction or the invocation, I guess, before the event. And it was this big event at the Plaza Hotel. And then Golda Meir was the featured speaker. And then she was sitting right next to me at dinner doing this. You're not eating enough. You're not eating the whole damn dinner. You're not eating enough. Yeah, it was like, I said, Milwaukee, is that where you were from? The Jewish mother from Milwaukee. Yeah, it was. Yeah, no, really, seriously, that was like the funniest. I would never forget that. She was like, little boy, yeah, I think I was 28 at the time. Anyway, and I liked the idea, the last one, number 10, thought I would do a little Hebrew lesson, which is that the courage in Hebrew is one of the ways of saying courage is ometz lev. And I always like that because it literally means ometz is strength and lev is heart. Courage is having the strength of your heart to meet whatever the challenges are. Hebrew is sometimes very expressive in its lev. I like that. And where does that come from? Where does courage come from anyway? I don't know if anybody knows. Can't definitively say where any of our approaches, attitudes, strengths, commitments come from. For some of us, we have courage because it was modeled by parents. When I used to do parenting workshops, I had one parenting book that I wrote called Children of Character, Leading Your Children to Ethical Choices in Everyday Life. One of my favorites of my own. And I used to do these parenting workshops at the time. And I remember every time I do a parenting workshop, I would say, I'd love you to buy this book, but frankly, the whole book could be reduced down to one sentence. And the one sentence would be the kind of adult you want your children to grow up to be. And then, that sort of captures everything. But buy the book anyway, which nobody did, but I thought it was a good idea. So, but that's, because parents are role models for the number one role model for their kids, both positively and negatively. And you don't get to vote on it. It's just, you don't get to tell your kid, okay, pay attention to what I do on Monday, but ignore me on Tuesday. Just, it doesn't quite work that way. And so many of us and people we know will tell you, well, I'm this because I didn't want to be what my father was, or I didn't want to be that, so I'm going to be the opposite. But frankly, it's in our DNA, literally, on the one hand, and it's in the very fabric of our being with whoever we grow up with has the influence on us that we can't even totally identify. Because some of it's from not just parents, but siblings, older siblings, people, that we model ourselves on because we want to be like our older brother, we want to be like our older sister, or whatever. We all model ourselves, sometimes consciously and very often not consciously, subconsciously, on people that we admire or respect or fear. I want to be that kind of person. Sometimes I want to be the one that people are afraid of, and I don't want to be afraid anymore. And one of the TV, we watch a bunch of Korean shows. We watch a bunch of Korean shows, and one of the Korean shows that we were just watching was a guy who's in a gang. Reluctantly ended up in the gang because his father used to be in the gang and whatever. Anyway, so it's this whole thing about gangs. It's really a love story, but because most of them are love stories, because all the ones we watch are love stories. But the guy's in a gang, and part of the dynamic is watching younger people, and even in this Korean show, who want to be in the gang. I want to join the gang, and what their own needs are, and in all of those, most of those, not all of them in this show, were essentially people without parents. So this was the family thing, because that's what gangs do, always, have always, and always will. This is your new family, and I have your back, and we're there for you, and people that don't feel that they ever had a family or that someone had their back and was taking care of them, they join cults, they join gangs, they join external families, synagogues, whatever. But it's helpful, and community is important. Okay, I have to share this with you. You've probably have heard this before, but I like it, so I'm going to share it with you. It's a story about three people who were trapped on a desert island for years. They were trapped on this desert island for years. And a Muslim and a Catholic and a Jew. They didn't walk into a bar, but a Muslim and a Catholic and a Jew. I'm going to pull together a podcast of a Muslim, Catholic, and Protestant and Jew, but I haven't done it yet. Naturally, they spend a lot of their time beyond caring for their mere survival, dreaming of where they would go if they ever got off the island. Then one day, one of those classic island miracles happened. An ancient flask washes up on the shore, and they pick it up and rub it, and voila, up pops a genie, and a big gigantic genie like in every legend. And the genie looks around at three of them and says, okay, I got 3 wishes, so you each get 1. So first he turns to the Muslim, says, what's your wish? And without a pause, he says, I wish to go to the holy city of Mecca, fulfilling my lifelong dream of Hajj, being able to be there and on the pilgrimage, and flash, he's gone. Then Genie turns to the Catholic and says, where would you like to go? And the Catholic says, I want to go to the Vatican. There's a new Pope. I want to go to the Vatican, to the center of the Vatican, where I could fulfill my lifelong dream of meeting the Pope. Flash, and gone. Finally, the Genie turns to the Jew, who looks around and says, I wish my friends were back. Okay. It's an old story, but a good one. This is yes, right. My former friends, once they show up. Yeah. Here's the thing. We are a communitarian religious civilization. We're communitarians, all of us. It's a new religion called Judaism. We are a communitarian religious civilization. We are not about individual salvation. We are about community. Always been about community. We're coming up on holidays. We're going to be doing this. Some of us will be doing this. But if we're reading the prayers, Al Chet Shapatanu Lefanecha, or any of those things that we say, all the sins that we have committed and all those things we're going to do by the time Yom Kippur show, it's always in the we. Al Chet Shapatanu, what we have done. It's always in the plural. It's what we have done. And the holiest day of the year, the day of searching for forgiveness, the day of repentance, it's still not about me. It's about us, and all of us. And no, because otherwise you read this list and go, I didn't do that, I didn't do that, I didn't do that, I didn't do that, I didn't do any of this thing. We all did some of them. Somebody did all of them. I mean, not one person, but collectively we did all of them and so much more, And it's the act of community and reaffirming community and reconnecting. That's why we're doing this, having me show up once a month at my alma mater, Temple Judea, for anybody who wants to show up, just to connect, to see people, searching for an old familiar face, the Jews of Anatevka, which is actually in my Rosh Hashanah sermon if I get to give it. Anyway, I hope so too. I'm assuming yes. I haven't heard no yet.
Get up and yeah.
Yeah, you never know. I'm sure it's yes. But that's what we're about. So, resilience for Jews comes out of community. That's where resilience comes. It's because we go, okay, it's us. What are we going to do about this problem? What are we going to do about that challenge? What are we going to do about every opportunity that we have? How do we create the future together? And it's this season of the year that we're most reminded of that. We have the High Holy Day period. We have the 10 days of repentance. We have everybody getting together or on Zoom. We'll see what kind of synagogue community KI has, but I'm sure there'll be more people on Zoom watching the service, because who knows where they are? They're all over the place. And if that's another way of connecting. Not my favorite, but it's another way of connecting. And then we have Sukkot. And one of the great mitzvot of Sukkot is getting people to come to your sukkah. The whole purpose of having a sukkah is getting people to come during that week. Because it's not enough to just sit there alone. And it'd be lonely just to sit there alone, because everything we do is about community. And so for me, resilience is a good theme of this season and a good reminder that we're not in this alone. And in times of anxiety and in times of fear, the first thing to do is don't watch the news. That's the first thing to do, is stop looking at the news, because it's designed to upset you. So I guarantee you'll be upset. One of the few things I can guarantee is if you watch the news, you'll be upset. And you could go on forever about social media and everything else and what it's done to the country and the world, because here we are, but you all know that, because you can all look around and see what it's done to the country and the world and all the little pots and holes that we've all fallen into, and the results that's happening all around us. So we need each other and we need community. And I appreciate that you showed up here to spend the hour with me today. And you're welcome to come next month when I come back someday on another Thursday. And have a Shana Tova to those of you who will be wherever you are for the new year. And zooming in, yeah. And I will be at Samuhai, Erev Rosh Hashanah. That's what we're doing. At Barnum Hall, Samuhai, Erev Rosh Hashanah. And Rosh Hashanah day morning and Yom Kippur morning, I'll be some other room in Samuhai with a live band and doing a multi-generational service, which will be very fun.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming. So nice to see you.